full name and state where you are currently at for the meeting. So Fred.
I'm here at Kalamazoo at my house.
Kyle.
I swear I'm here. Just restarting my computer, but I'm listening in on my phone. I'm in my home in Kalamazoo.
Okay. Tim Hills.
Tim Hills, my home in Kalamazoo.
Regina Gorham.
My home in Kalamazoo.
Catherine White.
At my home in Kalamazoo.
Lene Powell Wilson.
Lene Powell Wilson at home in Kalamazoo.
And I'm Josh Koenig at my home in Delton. Okay, approval of agenda. Everybody has a copy of the agenda, had a bit to look over it. Are there any additions or amendments? Pam?
I haven't been introduced yet, but I'm wondering if
Introduction of guests is next.
I know.
Okay.
I'm Pam O'Connor, volunteer.
Okay.
I wonder if we might want to think about adding something to the plan that addresses our recent discussion about helping to document a more inclusive.
It's in there.
It is? I missed it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's under, so that discussion is kind of lumped in with the Public Education Committee to maybe fold that into and begin talking about diversity and inclusion.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then at the very end, under adding number 4, it says diversity and inclusion, and where does grant making the O'Connor Fund fit in?
Yep.
So
they're both in there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other additions, inclusions, or discussion?
I guess
David.
I'm not sure where, but probably under public education or maybe under designation. I'd like to make my my pitch again for the Historic Preservation Commission to formally adopt some plan that recognizes the potential of historical archaeology in the city of Kalamazoo.
Yep, and Sharon and I discussed that as well, and that will be included under designation as well, so 3B. Yep, so that point is already there as well. Yep. Any other discussions or additions? Okay, and since David's point about archaeology isn't in print, we'll include that as an amendment under 3 to discuss archaeology. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
A motion to approve as amended.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have an agenda. Introduction of guests. We'll begin with David.
My name is David Brose, and I'm speaking from my home in Kalamazoo. I was for quite a few years a commissioner, background in archaeology, public history, museum, and I do some work for local organizations in terms of archaeology. We'll talk a little bit about that when we talk about the Four Corners area. And I'm interested in the Historic Preservation Commission's work still.
Thank you, David. Pam.
Pam O'Connor, volunteer from my home in Kalamazoo.
Okay. Moving on to citizen comments on non-agenda items and correspondence. Are there any citizen comments?
There are no citizen comments at this time.
Okay, any citizen comments from our guests?
We're going to get to those issues that I raised later, so I guess that would be adequate. Otherwise, I'm here to assist Regina when we come to talk about the other work groups.
Okay. Pam, anything?
Nope, thank you.
All right. Then we'll get into the discussion, right? I mean, this is a work meeting. It's a fairly informal meeting. So we can kind of, I want to begin by having a discussion of Really looking at the bottom of page 1, reviewing our current projects and then prioritizing projects, trying to get a realistic assessment of where we're at, what can be done, and we don't necessarily have to, we can go until about 8 tonight. I'd like for us to have some good discussion and begin to formulate a plan for really probably the next 3 years, getting a working plan going. If it comes to that, we need to step away and think about a couple of things and make some more firm decisions at the next month's meeting. I'm fine with that as well. We're not going to vote on anything or pass any of the work plan tonight anyway. So we can go ahead and begin. Sharon, I'm going to turn it over to you to start it off then.
Okay, I think that you guys have had a chance to look at this. I'm sorry I didn't get it to you sooner, but the work plan has always been on the back of the agenda. So that's always been part of everything you've been getting. I think that the first two, number 1 and number 2, I think that the reconnaissance level survey should continue to be something that is reported to the HPC. But now that we have it in place and it's moving forward, I'm not sure that HPC should be listed as taking the lead on it, since that was something that they pushed for and supported. And so I guess in a sense, we've kind of achieved at least that goal, not the complete survey, but we have achieved the goal of getting the survey onto the city's radar and getting it approved and supported.
And I agree. It's not, I mean, there are people on the commission that are going to be taking part in the survey, but it's not it's the city's task. I do think there still needs to be a monthly report in keeping everybody up to speed, where things are at, what still needs to be done. But at this point in time, it's in the hands of the city. What do you all think? People can feel free to speak freely or not.
Unfreely?
Unfreely, yeah, under duress.
It seems like it should still be a goal, but maybe not a priority goal.
So maybe it becomes monitor the reconnaissance level historic resource survey and is just listed at maybe at the end of the list or something like that.
I mean, is there a reason why it wouldn't be made a part of your coordinator's report?
No, that's what I was thinking, is that it would just be a regular, because that's what I've been doing anyway, is just putting a report into the packet. But in my mind, the projects on this are the projects that are driven by the commission, not necessarily the ones that they just support. This is the ones where we were in the practical preservation workshops, preservation month. Those are all things that we do, that the commission does. That's your action. That's your project. Whereas this one it's far from done by a long shot. But I think that it should just be a report topic. But that's up to the commission. We can leave it on the list. I don't want to spend a lot of time figuring out what to do with each one. But I think we all need to, as we go through the topics, I think we all need to weigh in. What do you think? Should this be and when we get down to the bottom, I want to kind of reprioritize things. And then maybe we can shake things down a little bit more, add, subtract, move things around in the list a little bit.
When you say that the reconnaissance level survey is in the hands of the city, but it's not the responsibility of the Historic Preservation Commission, whose responsibility is it then?
It's the city staff, me as the coordinator, the neighborhood activator that we have at the city, the planning department. They're the ones who are handling it now. So it's just not, the HPC is not driving that one. They're part of it. They're very interested in it. They want to see it succeed, but they're not the ones who are responsible. They're not the ones who are going to be out and meeting people, making arrangements, like say for Preservation Month. We go out and we make the arrangements, we make the nominations, all that kind of stuff. That's an internal process for us as a group. And then we reach out to the public to get them engaged. And we're doing this to a certain degree, but the commission isn't doing that. Now it's a staff project.
I mean, I suppose if people feel that it's necessary to still keep it a goal, we could, like Pam said, we could place it at a back end goal and change the goal to monitoring the completion of the survey, and that's fine because I do think it is in this commission's purview to ensure that it's still completed, and monitor that it's still completed. So I mean, I'd be okay with that, but I don't think it makes a lot of sense to have a committee anymore for it.
But you are all welcome to volunteer to take on and survey an area in your own neighborhood if you like.
It's lived on the plan for a couple of years now. And I think for that reason alone, it seems appropriate to leave it there until it's been brought to completion. I know Sharon has a completion date down there, but you know, it might have been done sooner if we hadn't had COVID, right? So
No, that's the date we assigned it before COVID.
okay.
I was going to put a completion date a year further out, actually.
It just seems odd that it would just disappear poof off of the plan after having lived there for a while and knowing it's not yet completed.
Well, the yes and no, though. The initial goal was to initiate a survey, and this commission has done that. We initiated the survey.
But isn't the goal of the commission to see that it is completed effectively?
Actually, according to this, it's not.
Well,
It's been altered to say to be, the last requirement is to begin survey in March 2020 and complete by July 2022. That's,
We do have completion on there. Okay.
yeah, we do.
Okay. Then, yeah, I would say that we've changed it to monitor the completion, you know,
yeah,
see it through to the completion now.
yeah, that's pretty easy.
Yeah, we just, I mean, we just changed it to monitor.
Okay, sounds good.
Then is basically the leader for that though, then Sharon, the coordinator?
I'm going to be doing the report, and I'll
Yeah.
continue doing a monthly report on progress, and just keep everybody up to date on what's happening.
Okay.
But I think that it might move in a different place in the priority. Maybe we'll have a category that's just for monitoring as opposed to necessarily acting.
Okay. That's a good idea too.
Okay, next we have the Kalamazoo Reservation Public Education Committee. And really, this is one of the ones that we really need to talk about. And I wondered what the commission feels like. Do we want to stop on this one and talk about it in depth? Or do we want to just kind of, what I'd like to do is hit each one and then get your opinions on whether you want to really talk about that one a lot. And then we'll get rid of the ones that are quick and easy. And then we'll move on to the ones that need a little bit more discussion. Does that sound reasonable? Okay. So that one, I think, because you see what the goals were, what we have done, we've really we've been sidetracked on one part of that. I mean, the 4 corner markers, we've got the street signs up, and the next exit history is migrating. So
yeah,
and I am kind of intrigued about the idea of folding it into sort of a diversity and inclusion category and having this be one of the projects rather than necessarily a separate issue on its own. But then again, that's depends on how you think of what the function of the commission is, to take the lead and to run with this, or what. So Regina?
I mean, and of course, David, jump in too. I think I've felt like this has been a collaborative. It's never been just the commission necessarily spearheading. It's a partnership experience. And I know that with some of these goals, between COVID and changing steel prices and everything you can think of, things have gotten a little bit off track, but there are still some things that I know we have a meeting Friday that we're going to go over, and some of the stuff is waiting for the city to move. on things that they said they were going to move on,
Right.
and it hasn't happened. Now, again, COVID, given everybody grace on, taking care of the things that need to be taken care of. But I think that some of the goals will change a little bit because of the pandemic. I think the main overarching goal to have increase in public education and increased presence of the story of the reservation and the boundary markers is still, of course, there. But I think some of the way that is going to roll out and be facilitated is probably going to change in ways that we aren't even really sure of right now.
Right. I think that's a fair assessment. The financial situation following COVID is going to really make a difference in terms of what we can expect to do. The new focus of the Community Foundation on the marker sense of being able to identify places of significance for all kinds of inclusive groups. We'll have to take that into account in redesigning how we think about that. The kind of funding that might have been available 2 years ago is probably not available now. And so somewhat glorious, I think, the plans that we had, which really excited all of the property owners and everybody in the art community and everybody we talked to, might not be possible to implement in the next few years. And so maybe we need a two-stage process. I think we're going to talk about a lot of this Friday with representatives of the parks and representatives of the city, and of course co-chaired by the Machimanashuish Tribal Council representative. So I think if this workshop meeting were to be held, a month from now, I think Regina would be able to walk in with some real hard data in terms of where we're going and how we're going to get there.
Yeah, I think, like you said, Sharon, the signs are up. I'm working on next exit history. I just need to get the videos from John to Keith, and they're sitting in his office. So, a lot of that is kind of just waiting for that last little bit where everybody can safely transfer, things physically. But yeah, a lot of the points that are connected to C, D, E, C, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
C, D, and E are all kind of question marks. A is done. B is done. F is ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
And G is ongoing and dependent on some of the changes that we'll probably talk about on Friday.
Yeah.
We can see that with the number of different groups, TRHT and SHARE, and the city's new diversity and inclusion coordinator. I don't see necessarily the HPC being the lead on any of those, but I see us as being very vibrant and active partners.
Yes.
To assist and to facilitate where our knowledge and abilities and skills are useful. So, so this is, that's just my thoughts. What I've been thinking about what the Preservation Commission wants to do and is trying to do, and what other people in the community are trying to do, and how we want to support them. So,
yeah, I think there's alignment with what we do and with what other groups do. But the more I think about it, and we talked about this a couple of months ago, I don't know that this commission needs to be the leader on a lot of that also. And I do see all of the goals of the Reservation Public Education Committee as being a subset of that idea of diversity and inclusion as well. Fred, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I wondered, is the Kalamazoo Public Schools involved with this or tied in with this education piece? So
that's a huge question.
Yeah.
David knows it more than I, but there are members of the committee that were former KPS and a former museum educator, Elspeth Inglis and others, and Native tribe members who are educators who have been trying for years to work with KPS to involve this into their curriculum. And it has not happened. Lots of pushback. I don't know if that will change now, but they did not react well to the thought of adding this information to their curriculum set.
So they did not, even
yeah.
though if you look at the guidelines from the state of Michigan, they're supposed to in some way convey this information.
Yes. Well, and that kind of took a hit in 2018 when everything got redone, and it was led by folks who did not agree with including LGBTQ plus and other stories in Michigan history curriculum. So we're kind of up against it a little bit on that, but I think that is kind of where having KPL and having, you know, some of those really, really super accessible areas where we can share things will start making that process maybe a different approach.
Change that way.
Yeah, and then you know, like try and go at it from a different.
Yeah, I think we had actually come down to the idea that doing it through the KP, the public school curriculum was probably going to be an impossible push, and that we might be better off trying to go directly to families and put together information that families could digest on their own. Through the library would be a wonderful place to do that.
You know, in the school system I taught in out west in Colorado, U.S. history, 8th, 9th grade, roughly, you had 1 week in the curriculum to do Native Americans, and I'd stretch it to 3, but you could also talk about in the 1800s, the movement west and the Native Americans there. It just depend on what your focus was. And most of our training and older teachers training is what people know today about the story. There's more of a complete story. You can have a story from 2 sides, more than 2 sides. You can have it's hard, you know, I can see where schools kind of go, well, wait a minute, we've got enough on our plate to cover curriculum wise, but I think it's important they put this in.
The school system always seemed very enthused about it. We met with the superintendent and he was delighted, pushed it. It was the curriculum management people and the teachers themselves who felt that they didn't have time to add anything new.
Yeah. So, I mean,
I think incorporate it.
I think that some of this too with Sharon, and I know others have mentioned it, TRHT and the work that they're doing. I mean, I think that there's probably some more expansive opportunities than we had even a year ago that are existing now. And I think it's just figuring out what exactly those are and how we push things forward. So.
Right. Right. So I agree. So I think that's something that we can support and put pressure on as appropriate, but I don't think it's something that we're going to be taking the lead on. I was holding that up because that was my Kalamazoo Native American history when I was in 4th grade.
Fair.
Does it make sense to change the verb there that's used frequently, continue, coordinate, construct, to cooperate? If the Preservation Commission is not going to lead, but
cooperate or partner, I think either would be appropriate. And you know, I think
collaborate.
This is just my collaborate. Absolutely. This is just my kind of feeling, but you know, I think we keep the same spirit of this goal, but broaden it to diversity and inclusion and change our action to collaborate, whatever, right? But still keep the root, the spirit of the Reservation Education Committee as one of those bullet points within diversity and inclusion. We just kind of rethink it a little bit, but that's just my suggestion.
That's actually how we got into it, of course, because we stepped into it because of the Yanelli Fountain.
Right, for sure. For sure. So, I mean, keep that in the back of your mind for now, if we want to move on to number 3.
Okay, so this was, and I kind of like Pam's suggestion here that that we fold this into the grant program, which is down at the bottom of the page. How the grant program might work and change the way that this is stated so that it's a part of the grant making program. So it's a subset of that instead of being a goal in and of itself.
I agree.
Well, that was easy.
Well, and I
Okay,
think,
wait.
I think the goals of both are in alignment with one another.
I figured it out. I was going to ask, wait, what? And then I figured it out. Don't worry.
Oh, okay.
Reading helps. Reading, you read
you with
things.
me? You with me?
Yeah, I'm here.
So that would just mean kind of reorganizing it. I mean, we're still in the process of determining exactly how that grant making program is going to work, but I see the two being very related to each other. And maybe add one of the goals under grant making program should be to be aware of extraordinary, and by that I mean outside of the ordinary and expected opportunities to assist in preservation projects that are discovered or that rear up. You never know what's going to happen. So okay, so the priority goal number 4, which was the cemeteries, I'd very much like to say that at least for the next year, I don't really want to try to do too much on this for 2 reasons. There's 2 things. I'd like to see the commission reach out and get someone to write that survey program that we need for surveying the headstones easily, with kind of like we're doing with the inventory Kalamazoo, do the same sort of thing with the headstones and make it that easy so people could just, call for an assignment, go out and do it, and we would start gathering the data that way. But also because the Gilmore Foundation has given Mountain Home almost $800,000 to do work on the cemeteries, the Mountain Home and the Jewish cemetery. I think that this might not be the year for us to plan anything in the cemetery itself, because we don't know when the work's going to start, exactly how long it's going to take, how disruptive it's going to be. So I was thinking I would very much still like to schedule a cleaning date, but I don't think that we should plan on doing anything too active in the cemetery itself over the next year. So the goals would become to and I've got it somewhere. Where'd I got this in the packet?
Item B.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Yep. That we, we get the program, the inventory plan going, and just, it's a pretty simple approach, but I think this year we shouldn't be in the cemetery. I mean, we can be, and we can do cleaning and stuff because it's just going to be a day, but I have no idea how much they're going to be disrupted.
Well, I was going to say, I'm assuming that for at least part of their work, they're going to be shutting down access to the cemetery entirely, because they'll have to make it safe so nobody's going in. So I feel like that would be hard. Yeah. I mean, that combined with weather gives you enough obstacles probably.
Well, there is a gate on the Forbes, the back end, the north end of the cemetery that can be opened to allow heavy access in for heavy equipment. But at the very least, when they're working on out of West Main, at least one of those is going to be closed. So it's going to be kind of an interesting little detour through there that people don't usually get to make.
Well, and I hate to be a thorn in your side, but if they're doing construction, you gonna clean off the headstones, and then the dirt gonna come back on there because they throwing dirt everywhere. I mean, what's the point?
It won't be that much, but I'm thinking that they probably will have the work done by the end of summer, and that if we schedule our cleaning for after that, it'll be kind of a nice way to get people back into the cemetery and engaged with it again. And our last one that we did was late September, I think.
Yeah.
And that was really successful. If we could manage to always schedule it after a heavy rain, that would be spectacular, because then it's all wet and squishy and it comes off real easy.
I was wondering too, and this is a going forward, this is something I thought of, if it wouldn't be an OHOW collaboration, but not really OHOW, but if we could do some sort of video training.
Oh,
it could. Why couldn't
that
it?
Could be a future thing. Doesn't have to be now. It just popped into my head.
Oh, it could be the old house owners cemetery. No, the old
Old
We
cemetery.
we could
ARC.
find an acronym that would work.
Well, and it fits in because that's where we have our workshops right there in the
Yeah.
Citizens Lodge.
It was just something I thought of
Oh,
that
I
we
love
could
that.
consider going forward. Doesn't have to be for now, but
Yeah,
I had it in
short
my stuff.
video about how we do it here in Kalamazoo, and it's how simple it is, much more than you'd expect.
Mhm.
So
I have a
Doubt you
couple
wanna-
of, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Fred. Sorry.
I doubt you want to work as long as Halloween, but some people enjoy working in the cemeteries at Halloween. Or at
we have
least
at least
tours.
we at
are
least-
done.
No,
we have
that
at
won't be me.
2 groups that do tours in Halloween time in the cemetery already. They don't fight with each other, but we have to schedule them carefully.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, and then on this one, I mean, we can keep the same goals, but write in that things are on hold for a year and just push the same goals back, and at least for a year, this isn't a priority goal.
Yes, I would agree completely. Yes.
Where would we put it?
What?
In our
Not a
section,
priority goal. Where would we put it?
we can,
Somewhere further down the line.
yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
we create a new category that are, ongoing projects, not priority projects.
Okay.
They're the back burner,
Back burner
Just
projects.
simmering away quietly,
I would like to comment that perhaps for all of these areas where Sharon Ferraro's name is now, it should be changed to Historic Preservation Coordinator.
Oh, the new person will love that.
Well, it's
Yes.
No,
it's
yeah,
kind of necessary at this point.
I agree. It was a suggestion that I was going to make as well, because if we're planning 3 years out, then
Yeah.
inevitably it's
It
not
just needs
going
to say
be-
coordinator.
It needs to say coordinator.
I think it
Yes.
says it now. Doesn't it say it in sustainability? Oh, I'm looking at it. I think it does say coordinator.
Yeah, but some other ones say, well,
The
got-
survey says Sharon.
Well,
yeah,
that may end up being the case. I'm in negotiations.
yeah. I guess on anything that's purely coordinator related, it should be changed to coordinator, like the survey. But for example, on the cemetery project, that could still stay Sharon.
Yeah, because this is one of the things that
That's
I
true.
had so much fun cleaning off those gravestones.
I was going to say, if
It's a lot of fun.
chooses,
Yeah. For sure, but subcommittees, those names can change all the time.
right?
But yeah, anything that does say that is coordinator specific, that's something that we should fix right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's I've done that on those 2 already.
Yeah.
I'm making notes on as we go. So
And I know that Sharon I think, I don't know this, I think that Sharon is planning to be involved in the survey afterwards, but if she's in negotiations, I suspect she'll still be reporting to the coordinator first or communicating first with the coordinator.
Yep.
Right. So,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
Karen. Okay. Anything else on priority goal number 4? Okay. Cool. Then move to Preservation Month and other events. Yeah.
Sure.
All right.
I don't have a 3-year plan. I think I've said that before.
well, I did do on item C. I did kind of a
Yeah.
rough work plan for you. So I mean,
Yeah, I liked it.
I think it can be shortened down a little bit. The 3-year plan is something that we can work on ourselves. I think that
Mhm.
as we all extract ourselves from the year from HE double toothpicks, that we are all going to kind of get our feet back. I feel like I've been walking on the ice and I've fallen, and I want to be very careful getting back up again, making sure we're not going to fall again. And just, I don't think we should be too aggressive in taking on a lot of projects. So much as I loved the preservation months when we had speakers and workshops and all those wonderful things, it's definitely not going to be this year, and it may not be next year. it might be 2023 before we get up to that level of engagement with people. So
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead, Lenny.
But is it that you don't want to do the preservation program, or is it that we need to rethink what it is? Because with anything that's going on now, whether you're a business or whatever, you got to figure out how to change. And conferences now are on computer, they're Zoom. And so the point of the matter is, I don't think that it's going to go away. Zoom and other things are not going away. So even in the future, when it is safer to meet, they're still going to have some element of Zoom. So the question is, how do we come up with a different way of doing this as opposed to what we're used to?
Yeah, and I think this year will be kind of a test because we do kind of have, you know, we've got both sort of set up. We've got the Zoom set aside for making sure we're doing Zoom. I don't know where we're going to do it from yet, but that'll depend on gathering, etc. But I think that this will be the first year where at least we try to figure out the awards portion and how we can facilitate that via Zoom, which I'm fine with that. I do like, which I don't know if any of you have been to any of the past ones. I do like having it in person. I know Josh and Pam and everybody has, but that's because I like to get to go into all of the wonderful, beautiful buildings that we have in Kalamazoo. And I think that's the one piece of it that we can't ever replicate on Zoom. Just the presence of being in one of those spaces. But if we're able to somehow share it via Zoom, you know, in a tour format or something. I mean, when I was thinking about Preservation Month and I was thinking about all the great stuff you guys are doing with Oh How, that is one thing that popped into my head, because you are sharing those spaces virtually. And you've figured out how to do it. and I think that format or some version of that, whatever we decide that we want to do, I think might still become a really good part of all of this HE double toothpicks.
I have an idea that I'd like to share. I don't know if it's still available, but for the MHPN conference this fall, the awards were done virtually in short 3 to 5 minute videos where the video producer actually, you know, if there were people involved, met the people, if there were projects involved, they walked through the projects, and it was incredibly moving to see it that way, and much more rewarding than having a bunch of people stand behind a dais and just, you know, read nominations, right? It was really, really fulfilling.
And it's much more, I'm sorry, go ahead. Again.
Oh, that's okay. I was just gonna say that for another board that I'm on, for Docomomo, Michigan, a modern preservation advocacy group, we did a live tour day this fall. And it was an experiment. It worked quite well, where we toured different buildings live. So we had people, we'd kind of switch over to who was controlling the screen at that moment in time. And it was a similar idea to yours, Pam, or similar concept of the MHPN Awards, but it was neat to have that live experience. Could ask questions live, say, oh, hey, can you, the chat could say, can you zoom in on this thing over here? And it was a little scary to do it live and to have that experiment live, but it worked really, really well. Everyone rave reviews, so it's possible.
Yeah, and you know, we have to think about what is your goal when you're doing the awards. The goal, in my mind, call me crazy, but the goal is to give that person praise for whatever they did, whether they built a building or whatever. Okay, so what is the greatest form of praise? And the greatest form of praise is to show people what they did. So it could be that, you know, we only get maybe what, 5 or 6 nominations for the houses and things. So it could be that we could hire the people, public media, to go out and take pictures or videos of what they've done and have them explain what they did, and then we could post that during the award ceremony. And so, because one of the things, you're right, you give them the award, I'm sitting in the seat like, well, what did they do? I don't, and I'm sitting there trying to figure out which house is it. I can't remember. But if you have all of their things right there, and you can show them, you know, each of the nominees and what they've done, and have them explain in their own words, you know, what they did and how difficult it was or whatever, and then give the, you know, the award. I think that you have fulfilled the ultimate goal of giving praise, because
So I
that
think,
makes them proud.
Lene, I think you're crazy.
I know.
Only half crazy though. I totally agree that it's important to praise the person for whatever they've done, whether it's a project or another effort that's involved with preservation. But as important as of that is getting the Preservation Commission's name out there and attached to these projects for public education purposes. Public education is really important. And when we're giving awards away for good work, having our name attached to that as the presenter of the awards is also really important, because it elevates the recognition in the community of what the Preservation Commission actually supports.
Right. And
Right?
so, well, then we just have to figure out, how do you do that in the video, you know?
It's pretty easy.
Yeah.
I don't know if MHPNs are still out there or not. And that's just one example. I totally agree that if an awardee is willing to be involved in a short video, and they're able to do it, that's a really good thing. I think in this case, MHPN probably did it with one videographer, a very, very good producer, because time was short. We needed to have a good job done in a relatively short period of time. But it's definitely possible, and it could be really cool.
And
Well,
the nice thing,
sorry.
about it is it could be available later for people who didn't make the actual ceremony. They could go back later and look at it. I could see putting together a short slideshow, even if we can't get out and individually videotape the properties, but even, you know, put together a short slideshow and then ask the award recipient to narrate it for us in advance so it's ready to go, and then we show it, and then we give the award or something like that. I think this is something that when we get into the mechanics of it, probably Regina and I and maybe someone else need to sit down and actually work out how it could actually work.
But now keep in mind,
that puts
you only
quite a
got
show.
3 months, so you it's quick.
Yeah.
If you are interested, I'll see if I can, if the MHPN awards are still available for viewing, and share them out with you if you'd like me to.
Yeah, the link, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, some good stuff here. I really like what's here. Josh, I want you to take over and talk about your operations.
Yep. Honestly, with operations, the only question that I had, I don't think anything changes with this. I mean, some of the things, obviously the budget, right, got hung up with COVID this year. But Sharon, is there going to be a official name change or anything with the DDRC?
There.
I had that circled too.
I'm not sure. We're still going to be doing the larger big project reviews, but the smaller things like signs and some of the stuff that's like administrative approvals is all going to be relegated to staff using DDRC standards.
Right.
Okay. So that the DDRC meetings, I anticipate eventually probably within the next year, the DDRC is going to essentially evaporate, and that the functions of DDRC using the DDRC standards and guidelines that we have will be folded into site plan review.
So,
So it'll still
So
be
that
done,
would-
but it will no longer be a public meeting.
so that would then, so the goals of point 9 would then get lumped into the goals of point 1, correct? The meeting with
Yeah.
the city planner.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Pretty much.
So,
That would be, and the thing is that we could include as one of the coordinators' reports, because whoever the coordinator is still going to be involved with DDRC as part of site plan
Right.
review. We could make that a report topic.
right. So point 9 essentially goes away and then gets split up between the coordinator and then the meeting with the city planner.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That is really the only change that I had.
Could we go back to sustainability for just a minute because I made a note?
We're not on sustainability yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. It looked like that came actually before operations. My
No,
mistake.
yeah. I got them backwards a little bit because I was cutting and pasting
Okay.
without coffee.
Okay, for the peanut gallery, what is
Yeah.
DDRC?
Oh,
Downtown Design Review Committee.
Oh, okay,
Downtown
thank
Design
you.
Review Committee.
Yep, we do new construction, exterior reviews of any exterior alterations. It's kind of like the Historic District Commission, but without the history part so much.
So you want to be on the board at
Oh.
the meeting?
No,
No.
currently the chairperson stays in contact and has, ensures that this body has access to downtown design review committee, but downtown design review committee is changing / going away.
It's been very active for about 15 years, and now the city has decided that that function of being able to control what happens in the downtown is important enough that they just want to fold it in, rather than making it a separate committee, they want to fold it into site plan review. So that, among other things, that it actually has the force of law to be enforced. So
Pam,
I'm actually very happy with this. So
Pam, you've got a look going on. What's going on, Pam?
Well, it has to do with the new zoning for downtown as well.
Yeah.
And that disappoints me because I don't think everything was handled. But that's just my input.
Yeah.
And everybody knows about it already.
Yeah, but yeah, Lene, to get to kind of the long and short of your question, that committee is evolving, is really the only way I can put it right now. So this commission will still have contact and input. It'll just be in a different way. So in terms of planning and logistics, though, point 9 doesn't need to exist anymore. The goals of point 9 still need to exist, but point 9 doesn't need to exist because there's going to be no committee.
Okay.
So unless anybody had anything else that I'm just not thinking about for operations, I think that stays the same. Sustainability is going to change a bit, though, when we get to that one. Okay, so let's move on then to sustainability. So there are a couple of things here. I guess I'm going to go out of order for a second. With this, what I think should be a primary goal for at least sustainability and for the commission this year is to think pretty seriously about other opportunities for fundraising, especially in light of our discussion at our last meeting about wrapping up the book, right? Shifting responsibilities from Pam to Lynn Houghton, and then by the end of the year, resolving all of that. Finding something that is on par. I mean, it could be a totally different project, but finding something that's on par with the text that Pam and Lynn wrote that was as successful. And that's going to be a really tough thing to do because, like, well done, Pam. but I think that really should be a priority for this year. And I've got some ideas. We talked about some of those ideas last year too, and then COVID hit and derailed a lot of those also. But I think that should be a goal. And then Pam, you wanted to say something about sustainability too. So
Well,
we can get back into some of the other stuff with
yeah, it actually has to do with the lost and found part of that. But
Mhm.
before I go into that, let me say that I liked Sharon's idea of perhaps moving the Hidden Kalamazoo project to Arcadia Publishing.
They wanted it really, really bad.
Well, and
Really wanted it. And I think that we are, and Regina may be a little more in the middle of it as I am, but I want to just take a really serious look and maybe do a report to the commission in April about what the status is of all the text and everything. Because my feeling was that, except for the photographs and the attributions for the photographs, that we were pretty close to wrapped up. And we don't have to worry about captioning and layout, and they'll just take the whole burden off our hands.
Yeah. And I personally would hate to see that project mothballed, because I know so many people put so much time and effort into it. It'd be sad to just set it aside for a while. And I think the Arcadia Publishing is a very viable option to look into also. But assuming that even we do go through Arcadia Publishing, then there's a bow put on that project. So what's next?
Right.
Because either way, whether it gets mothballed or whether it goes to completion, it's almost there either way. So it's definitely time to start thinking about what's next as well.
okay, may I respond to that specifically?
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things that could be next is a much more concerted effort to grow the O'Connor Fund, because the O'Connor Fund is there specifically to address the work that the Preservation Commission wishes to do or feels it's important to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be one of the what's next. It could be a capital campaign.
Yeah. And that's very true.
For gifts to the O'Connor Fund. That said, we do need to have more to show in terms of what we've been able to do so far, which is one of the reasons that I wholly support Lene's effort to find out how many people are watching these OHA videos and the other things that we're doing there. But let me get back to Lost and Found for a minute, if I may.
Go ahead.
Something has come up. I think I mentioned when we had the conversation at last month's meeting or earlier this month's meeting that I would explore opportunities for how to reduce the inventory in the best way possible without throwing a bunch of books in a hole in the ground. And in the process of working on that, and I have made some inroads there, the idea of digitizing Kalamazoo Lost and Found has come up. And Lynn and I talked about it a couple of weeks ago, and I've been making inquiries along the same vein as I've been working on, how we can reduce the inventory and hold some books back for gifts and that kind of thing. But I've now had just very initial conversations with both the Kalamazoo Public Library and Western Michigan University. So far, most of us agree that to digitize the book at this point, when it's copyrighted, so before the copyright ends and it goes into the public realm, could be as simple as a fair use agreement with whomever we intend to have host it. And I'm not sure that needs to be one or the other. It could be both. But everyone I've talked to so far, Lynn, our former editor, Maria Perestable, who used to be a preservation commissioner, and a former librarian, and some other folks, all agree that we've all seen the book referenced in multiple places because it's being used for research purposes. And it's a good idea to have it out there and available. And so I would like, if you are willing, to add that to your lost and found list as a goal, assuming you all agree that it's an important thing to investigate. And and hopefully do.
Pam, I would also suggest that we do 19th century homes.
How about if we use one as an experiment and
A
then,
test.
yeah.
Yeah, because that would make it available to people, you know.
And walking,
I
and
would
walking
be
through time.
Yeah, and we own the copyrights on all of those, so it's
Right.
not an issue. It's just a matter of a little bit of paperwork to make it entirely legal.
Yeah, I don't know. There will be paperwork. I don't know what. But first of all, you know, I need to gather more information so that I can report that to you. But Josh, if you're willing to add that to the list until
Yep, I already
we
did.
decide otherwise.
I already did, and I totally support that. Yeah, so I think in terms at least of sustainability, because because we agreed to it last month, priority number one needs to be finalizing the transition. That's 1A. 1B, well, and we can skirt these around however we deem
whatever.
fit, but 1B, execute said plan, and then 1C is the digitization of these texts. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And then number two, look at future fundraising plans, and then 3 and 4 going that way. I mean, and if future fundraising plans also tie into the O'Connor Fund, so be it. But that's kind of how I see the priorities under sustainability right now. Yeah, Lene.
Okay, there go my brain again.
What's
It's
up?
working. So what if we partner with the library and have some kind of digital display of different aspects of the book and of Kalamazoo? You ever been to a museum in Chicago where they have these big screens and just things just scroll, and they have a section that's dedicated to this specific issue? I think that would be great because that would advertise the book more because people are standing there looking like, wow, that's nice. B, it would advertise the efforts that the commission is doing. C, it would create that even deeper partnership with the library. So I think it would be a win-win, but maybe have some kind of area in the library that's for the commission, and we display the digital portion of the book, and maybe have some people talk about what we are doing, things like that. So just a thought.
Lene, they do actually have a big screen up in the local history room in the library. That might be really an appropriate place for them to do a short interview that runs once a day, or however, whatever. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I think they'd probably be willing to do that for us.
They also have a screen right behind the information desk on the main floor.
But it's way on the ceiling.
Yeah, but everybody can see it.
Yeah. Well, that's true.
I think we'd have to check with them about sound, because I don't know that the screen in the local history room has any speakers.
But
you know what? I don't. You're right. I don't know if it does
because they just use it for scrolling images of their collection.
Yeah, right. But you can close caption it.
Oh yeah, I was just thinking.
Yeah, you can close caption and have the words at the bottom.
Yeah. I think we'd have to talk with them and see what their priorities are. I know right now they're focused on their anniversary next year.
Oh wow,
150. So because I've been getting lots of emails from them about it, so that's why I know. But I do like that, and I think that screen is huge. They got a new one maybe last year, and it's way bigger. So I think that would show it off well.
Yeah, well, and if the new book goes through Arcadia too, we could at least do the cover.
By the way, speaking of which, I have a friend in Chicago who published a book with Arcadia at the end of 2019. on Chicago's artists communities and
Okay.
where they were and that kind of thing. It's available on Hoopla.
who?
Hoopla, which is one of the digital reading services that's
Oh,
available through KPL.
Identify as just by itself. Yeah, you might think about lapsed elders.
It's pretty
Sounds like a good-
cool. I mean, Sharon, your name could be on a book on Hoopla.
Nice.
Everybody else that
Wow.
worked on it too. I'm far from the only person that's worked on that one, baby.
Well, you and everybody else, but you know what I mean.
But you know, and I'm not looking at it right now, but on the agenda, one of the projects is for promotion of the committee and what we're doing. That could roll under that library
Oh, yeah.
project.
Yeah.
I don't know which committee that was, but
Public education, maybe?
there's that. Okay, we can try that.
No. So anything else with anybody have any other comments about sustainability and revenue? Okay. So everything that we've talked about up to this point in time, those have all been our priority goals and our monthly and annually priority committee priorities. At the bottom, two questions that I don't think we need to prioritize things right now, but I do want you to think about it. We've already said that the cemeteries are going to the back burner, and very likely the Reservation Public Education Committee is going to get lumped under diversity. But I'd like you all to be thinking about what do we want to get done in the next 3 years. How much energy do y'all have? What do you want to do? Do we want 3? Do we want 5? What are those top priorities? But before we do make those decisions, I think it's a good idea to go on, flip the page on the agenda, because I do want to talk about designation and give David a chance to talk about archaeology as well. Yeah. So Sharon, do you want to take over discussions?
Yeah, so we're down to like 3B and okay.
3A and 3B and 3C.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, David wanted to talk a little bit about archaeology. I think that this designation list, although I love it because there's just so much on it, we've identified where the important resources are that we want to keep an eye on. But over the last several years, the commission has not shown a willingness or a real interest in investing time in actually trying to achieve some of those goals. The school thing has languished. Other projects that we've had on this list have languished. So I'd like to, designation, I think maybe should just be simplified down to support the establishment of new historic districts, national register nominations, and local designation as appropriate, and then educate the public on historic preservation and designation as a tool. So rather than have this long list, now we'll have that list, and I can keep including it in the packets if you want, just to have that. But it's a lot of information to pack in. I would also like to edit it down because some of those resources are now gone.
Well,
so
yeah, and also point 3 under designation. I got to be careful about this one. Has there been any work with, because I know there hasn't been with this commission, but has there been any work with the city and History 4100 this year?
No, nothing at all. No.
So,
nope. Although I did just ship off 2 years worth of stuff to the people that are doing the Edison project. So
good. Yeah. So, for right now, there's no infrastructure for that. So, that has to come off.
Yeah. So
do you want, Josh, for maybe those who don't know, do you want to explain?
I'd rather not.
Okay.
It's too soon.
Okay.
No history.
I mean the process, the way that it
Yeah, so
When?
history 4100 is historic preservation at Western Michigan University, and for years and years and years, I taught that class, and all of my students did some kind of culminating semester project in historic preservation with the city, be it context reports. One group of students wrote the context statement for the Gibson smokestack. Last year, they started off, the 4,100 students actually started off the city survey and did big chunks of neighborhoods that they surveyed. I'm trying to think what else. I did just a whole number of projects. Due to restructuring at WMU, I'm not teaching that class right now. So, and the students apparently aren't working with the city. So there we go.
Yep. Now, part of
not
that,
my class anymore. I can control it. So
yeah, part of that I attribute to COVID because things changed so much because of COVID. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I had when I was teaching that class, I wanted to give the students assignments that they couldn't plagiarize, so they had to do original research, which is what Josh had them doing as well, was doing survey work and doing original research for us. So yeah. And this year we just haven't had anything. So what I will do is I will edit down the designation section and present that at the next meeting. So maybe we can talk about it when we talk about this again at our meeting on the 10th of March. But then for those of you who don't know David Brose is an archaeologist and museum director. And he's been very, very involved with the public education program, with the Metchabeneshuish band, with the ground penetrating radar survey we did of the mound in the park. He's been very involved in all sorts of things. And he wants to talk to us a little bit about archaeology. I know you sent me a proposal or something, I think, David, about a year ago, maybe? Just, you're muted.
Thank you. I sent you a copy of a report I did years ago.
I'm not gonna distribute a 186-page report.
That's fine. It's online, so you can just make it available. No, the point I wanted to make is that you mentioned that some of our properties that are historically significant have disappeared. I want to let you know that there are a lot of properties that have disappeared that still retain some historical significance. We talked about doing survey. We talked about inclusion. Years ago, when I was working for the city of Cleveland as a museum director, head of archaeology program at the museum there, we did a lot of work in urban development, working with the city planning department, doing surveys ahead of time, identifying with the state of Ohio Preservation Office, just as the Michigan Preservation Office has done, a criteria for what would make particular kinds of historical sites, historical deposits, significant or eligible for the National Register of Historical Places. We also work to identify in an urban setting those areas in which those kinds of archaeological deposits are likely to have been preserved. We all know that when people build a house, the back property line is usually where the cistern is, or where the privy is, or where the trash dumps are. And as property lines develop, as the city urbanizes, in many cases, those become alleyways. Those are not areas that are built on. Those are areas that in many cases preserve whatever kind of archaeological deposits lay beneath them. In working with the city of Cleveland, we were really excited because we identified entire archaeological neighborhoods that had been abandoned to different kinds of industrial work, which had then been abandoned as the industries changed. And within those areas, Archaeological Survey was able to identify 5 or 6 different houses and the structures of houses, all of which belonged to a bunch of Irish immigrants who had arrived in the city sometime after 1858 and who left that neighborhood in 1895 primarily because it was a lousy place to live because of where the railroad tracks were, and also because most of the community had moved from being initial day laborers to a different kind of economic status. What we were able to document in Irish Bend in Cleveland was an entire community which had been completely misrepresented in the newspapers. And Cleveland was a Germanic town. It was an old English town. It was the Connecticut Western Reserve headquarters. and the Irish were not well regarded during the 19th century. And yet everything that was said about them, the way they lived, the kind of house they had, the kind of food was wrong. And archaeology was able to simply recover the evidence that allowed people to see an entire community that had been written out of the history books. And this is not new, not to Cleveland. I wasn't the first person or the only person who's done this. This has been done in the city of San Francisco, where entire Asian communities exist today only as archaeological deposits. It's been done in Alexandria, where an entire free black community was buried under a freeway approach and then rediscovered. This could be done in Cleveland. It could be done in Alexandria. It could be done in Kalamazoo. But we have no mechanism right now for identifying or even for putting in place with the City Planning Commission any kind of approach that would allow us to say, look, these are the kind of deposits that are likely to be significant. These are the areas where they're likely to be preserved. If you're going to develop that area, here's the kind of work you need to do ahead of time. Just like before you tear down that building, hey, let's find out if it's really significant. And if it is, let's find out what we can do to mitigate the impact.
And David, this is the perfect time for this because our, at least in terms of city-driven projects, our city engineer is a rabid history geek. He's you saw what we found when they drew down the water on Morrow Lake.
Right.
He's very, very interested in this. So maybe this would be a really good time to set up a process within the Preservation Commission and an idea and work with the Planning Commission and the City Public Works Department to add a process there that they haven't really considered before, unless they find human remains, and that's regulated by law.
Well, yeah, I mean, they have to, but.
Right, but there's so many other things and I can't tell you how many times I've gotten calls when they're working on a street and they say, you got to come and see these streetcar lines, or something like that. So, I mean, the department is intrigued by it. And I think that I wouldn't say it'd be automatically something welcoming, but if it's something that could be integrated into what's happening and maybe even into site plan review, I mean, I could see that very possibly happening. So.
Well, I think the state of Michigan, as did the state of Ohio and as the District of Columbia, has come up with a series of time periods and occupational types of behavior that they would consider significant enough to be eligible for the National Register of Historic Places, which is the criteria that all 106 needs to think about. And all of the urban development is, in one way or another, liable to be under 106 review. 106 review process for the Historic Preservation Act, which we now believe is going to survive. Well, it was only an executive order.
I think that's really vital, the archaeology end of it. To be short, my experience of seeing south of Denver, the Denver Museum of Natural History did a dig to mitigate expressway that's widened. They found a 50 million year old tropical rainforest was there in place, which if they didn't have that in process, that's set up with the state and all, would have been history that was lost.
Well, the state's got the process in operation and uses it with the Department of Transportation, with the Highway Department. It uses it with the city of Detroit right now. There's another in the area down around where the old Tiger Stadium used to be, which used to be an Irish town and now has become a Mexican community. Again, that same kind of archaeological investigation before development. But just like Fred's saying, and as Sharon said, when I was in Cleveland at the Museum of Natural History as the chief archaeologist, we got a lot of calls. We got a lot of calls from people who were working the front loaders. And yet we have to have a process that identifies what is significant, because all that glitters is not gold. Everything that comes out of the ground is not worth stopping a project for. So you need both hands. You need a hand that says, this is what would be considered significant if we ran into it, and here's a way of making sure that we don't run into it by accident. Because the last thing you want to do is to run into some extraordinary historical artifact, as happened in New York City, where they started excavating the foundations for one of the big towers and ran into the fact that, well, the edges of what are now Manhattan are all built over old ships. And many of those old ships still had their cargoes in them when they built the dirt on top of them. And stopping a multi-million-dollar construction project for a bunch of archaeologists in muddy boots to poke around with trowels. Nobody's happy with that.
I could see putting together, just based on historical research and what's already been discovered and known, the few sites in the city of Kalamazoo. But like you said, just kind of an overlay over the city of likely places where something might be found.
Right.
Not necessarily for sure, but places to keep an eye on. And like our natural features protection, that might be something that we could add to. We've got NFP that's already in place, and maybe we could talk them into adding archaeological as one of the things that could possibly be, reviewed. I mean, if Western gives up Asylum Lake and they start digging up in the old bases of the state hospital cottages that were up there, there's a historical site right there. Further out behind the Lee Baker farm, there's probably something going on out there anywhere along the river.
Right.
So I think this is something that we should explore, and then see how we could advocate for it being added to processes within the city itself, so that it becomes just integrated in, that the same way that we look for fire hydrants in the right places, and that we look for we check for hazardous materials that might be buried under a site that we don't know about. We do all that kind of checking, that due diligence. This should be something else that we can add.
I'd be happy to work with anybody on the commission or with the city that way.
I was just about to say, if I may, this is a project that needs a champion that is knowledgeable and that can guide the Preservation Commission. David, that's you, whether you know it or not. And at least in my opinion, perhaps there are some other archaeologists that could help, but I don't know of the level of archaeology expertise on the part of any of the other preservation commissioners.
Mine was only undergrad. I don't have that. So I was only archaeology undergrad.
And I would call it an avocation for me.
Yeah.
Fred?
Kind of an avocation for me too. I participated in a county dig called Blackfoot Cave, and it was a campsite, and worked for a year and a half when I was retired from public school teaching with them. It was interesting to get a little hands-on archaeology experience.
Well, I don't know where Nasani's gone, but he still lives in the city of Kalamazoo, I believe. And
as far as I know, he retired.
Before he became as deeply immersed in Fort St. Joe, he did a dynamite project on farmstead archaeology across southern Michigan. He has a lot of expertise in this. And I spent a lot of time, a year as a scholar in residence with what was then the Office of Archaeology and Historic Preservation, working to put together a multi-district nomination plan for the Tennessee Tombigbee River, which involved 3 core districts in 5 states and 2 federal agencies. And the kind of plan I'm talking about that we employed in Cleveland grew out of that work with some really good federal archaeologists and some good preservation people on the advisory council. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just have to adapt it to Kalamazoo.
Yeah, but I agree with Pam. I mean, this will need a professional point person, and please, thank you.
Well, as soon as I hand off everything to do with the reservation to Regina, I'll be glad to do that.
Well, I was thinking this might be a good topic for not this year, but maybe next year, for a CLG grant to hire an archaeologist to prepare the essentially overlay map for us.
Yep.
And I am no archaeology expert by any means, but at my time at SHPO, of course, they have many maps. And I remember doing 106 at the SHPO just as a grad assistant, keeping overlay maps of areas in which we worked often, like Flint, keeping archaeology overlays at my desk to say, oh wait, my property's within this area. Go talk to Stacy or Dean. And So the point being is that there are so many resources, and it's a relatively simple and elegant solution that I think could really work well here.
Yeah.
To find the right resources.
The State Historic Preservation Office here, under its archaeologist in the past, was keenly interested in this kind of an approach.
Yeah. I think there would be some real support in the city for doing that, for making that one more thing that's considered. Whether we're working on, because we don't have a lot of green fields in Kalamazoo, but when we're working on brown fields, what might have been there before? Well, when they were excavating for the exchange place, I've got a piece of that in my front room right now, because they found this wonderful capital to a column that was terracotta glazed in a granite pattern, that they just got very excited about it because they were finding all this stuff when they were digging the hole. So I think I like that idea. I like that.
Any good archaeologist would tell you that a privy is more important than a capital.
I know that. I know that completely. But it got them excited, and if that's the door that we open to get them into helping, that's worth it.
Yeah, but the ultimate goal really is to be able to identify the evidence that never got written down about the industrial development of the city, about its commercial development, and mostly about the people who lived here in the past who might not be in those places anymore.
David, are there any cities that you know of in Michigan that have done this already?
I think Detroit's working on it, but then Detroit's gone through so much in the last 5 years. I don't know.
Okay.
There's Mackinac.
Well, Mackinac doesn't. Even the city of Mackinac is basically a state park. So there are models out there. Alexandria is probably the best model I can think of right now. New York City has done it. Denver has done it. I can provide you with a list of places that have done it.
But yeah, I do think that writing the proposal this year is very attainable. So.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the interest and the attention, and I'll be glad to help in any way I can. But my wife's sitting over there fixing dinner, and so you can.
Hi, Barbara.
So, okay.
We're worried.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
See you Friday, Regina.
Enjoy your dinner.
Yeah.
Thank you. I will.
Take care, David.
Thank you.
Okay. Where are
I
we?
think we're up to 4A, diversity and inclusion. And then where does the grant making for the O'Connor Fund fit in?
Yeah. So we've dealt with a little bit the idea of diversity and inclusion, and that kind of takes the place of the umbrella goal of the Education Commission. Diversity and inclusion kind of replaces that, and then the Reservation Education Committee goes under that, is what we've talked about so far. And again, none of this is concrete, just ideas. So that would move us to the grant making from the O'Connor Fund.
Right. Actually, that's already in part addressed there.
Mm-hmm.
But I also have new information with regard to that whole idea, additional thoughts from conversations with some folks just in general about whether or not that kind of an activity supporting, as we talked about it earlier, a bigger tent of information about Kalamazoo history, right? Mm-hmm. Including everybody's history. Mm-hmm. And whether or not that should actually be a grant idea, as is currently proposed amongst those of you who are members of the committee, you know that. It's currently been proposed as one of the ideas that we might make grants for. But I'm wondering if maybe it shouldn't even be a grant opportunity, but it's just something that the commission should consider funding through the O'Connor Fund.
Yeah. Yes.
Because I don't think competitive grants are what we want to do. If we're serious about wanting to create a more diverse, inclusive, and all of that history of Kalamazoo, we should
I agree
just
with that. Just do it.
do it.
I agree with that completely.
I think that sort of support and collaboration with the other entities that are working on this issue, like TRHC and stuff, should be not, you're right, it shouldn't be competitive grant making. That should be like almost a given.
Yep.
How can
Something we do.
we help you fund the creation of markers? You know, you devise the program, we help to fund the creation of the markers and maybe the research and et cetera that needs to happen to make it work. I mean, whatever it is that they need, we would be a partner and a supporter and facilitator.
But I'm not talking about just that. I'm talking about it more specifically as it relates to buildings that are still here that can be preserved, which is at this commission's core mission. And there are good examples of how that's being done in Michigan right now. I talked with a colleague at Quinn Evans who was responsible for writing the Detroit Civil Rights Context Statement and doing the National Register nominations there. It's a great formula. And the city of Muskegon now has an RFP out for doing the same thing. And once you have that kind of a context statement, you can move it from one group that you are working toward including and expanding history on to the other. It's a formula that can be repeated and repeated and repeated, right down through the list of all of the groups that we identified that need to be included.
Pam,
And yes, Fred.
What's an RFP statement?
A request for proposal.
Okay.
And I don't know, my colleague suggested that we look at the Muskegon proposal, which he thinks is publicly located. And if I can't find it, she's going to find it for us. And I would share that with you. So it still would fall under the O'Connor Fund because it would be a direct fund, you know, a directly funded activity, but it wouldn't be a grant.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And it could augment what the Truth and Racial Healing folks are doing. And that doesn't mean we couldn't also cooperate with them. We should, I think. But it would be closer to the core mission of this commission, I think.
Well, and as we talked about in the grant committee last meeting, that the monies from the O'Connor Fund, I mean, they can do both, right? I mean, obviously they can be there for the grant programs, but they can also directly support the mission of this commission as well. So, yeah, I agree with that completely.
So I think basically what we have here right now under the proposed edits to what was the create a program of homeowner practical workshops to it now says create new and manage existing O'Connor Fund for historic preservation programs. And so it's a broader category, but it's got some subsections, one of which is OHOW, and the others of which are direct funding potential ideas, as well as grants. So the OHOW outline is a little bit more closely articulated into actual action steps under that. And then the other two are a little bit more open. Number 2 says preservation assistance, determine if non-grant support can help develop a more inclusive and diverse Kalamazoo history as it relates to preserving buildings and places. And the third one is then about developing one or more grant programs. And if we make action toward all of those three, even if it's a little bit at a time, then if you're all in agreement, it seems to make sense to move in that direction. It's ambiguous enough right now to let us kind of feel our way into the process a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. which is good because I mean, it's brand new.
Right,
And
we
it's
don't really know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, we have no idea what's going to happen because.
Or who we might meet that can help and
Right.
who we're gonna cooperate with and all that.
Yeah. No, I think it's good.
Okay. I'm done. Thanks.
Good work. I've got some really good notes here. I've been taking notes as we go, and I think I've got some really good notes, and I can. What I would like to do is, I'm not sure I'll be able to do it this week, but maybe early next week before stuff is due, before packet materials are due, or maybe with next month's packet will include my rearrangement of the work plan based on what we've discussed today. And then we'll have scheduled some more discussion for it at the meeting on March 10th.
Okay.
Sound good?
Okay. Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. We've only got, what, 25 minutes left. What I would propose, rather than trying to solidify this, we can have a little bit more discussion, but we, give people time to think, because the other important part of this also is for Tim, Lene, Catherine, and Kyle be thinking about what projects, because a couple of these, I wanted to say I still saw.
Well, and I too, when we talked about designation, I was thinking about it more. And Sharon, I know we haven't had a solid, successful champion for it over the past few years, but we have had a total turnover of people on the commission. So I don't want to scrap it entirely if there is somebody who feels really strongly about it. But I know that it has slowed, and Pam shows us up with all of her work, so we just kind of can't do anything.
Yeah, but
I'm retired.
Right. Yeah.
What I would like to consider is to somehow, I wouldn't say eliminate a whole bunch of stuff off the list, but somehow prioritize it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because we pretty much got every undesignated historic building in the city on that list.
Absolutely. I was thinking about it more and was just thinking maybe that's something somebody would be interested in, and I don't want to scrap it too early.
No, yep.
If that's the case.
Because what I'm going to do is put this together as a list that is not prioritized, so that at the next meeting, one of the goals will be to prioritize at the next meeting.
Yeah, and that gives Fred, Tim, Lene, Catherine, and Kyle time to also be thinking about, what committee would you like to work with? What committee would you like to head? What projects are you interested in? And where do you all see, really for the next 3 years, what work can we get done? What should our priorities be, and things like that? I mean, I have my ideas, but those are just my ideas. So any other discussion and comments and things before, and then we'll go into citizen comments.
Sharon, I'll send you whatever notes I have from the meeting Friday and from tonight, but I'll send you stuff so that we can do maybe some tentative updating of the reservation stuff.
Okay. Sounds good.
For the work plan. Yeah.
Yep. I've got a full day tomorrow, and since the last thing of the day is I'm getting my COVID vaccine, I have no idea whether I'll be coherent on Friday or interested in doing anything at all. We'll wait and see. But if I get your stuff, then maybe I can do that draft on Monday, and we can kind of fiddle with it a little bit. Monday or Tuesday.
First or second shot?
First. I've already had COVID, so I don't know whether it's going to be bad because I've already had one round.
The shots aren't. I've had the vaccine, and it maybe a mild symptoms that they talk about, but it's not knocking you out. Of course, it's probably different for everybody.
Yeah, I was going to say my neighbor had his second one, and he was out for 2 weeks.
Yep.
Ooh.
So, but he was a little he had a cold, like a little bit before he got his second round. And
I
so
know
I think his
specifically
immune
just got-
system was a little
just
compromised
got
going
walled.
into it.
Yikes.
Yeah,
I
so-
had a sore arm and wild dreams. Each of those 2 nights, wild, scary dreams, which are totally not my usual way of working, my mind's way of working at night. It was weird. I actually screamed in my sleep.
Huh,
Very odd. Woke myself up too.
that's crazy.
It was.
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah, I've heard stories from just totally across the board with
Yep.
people. So
But when I had COVID, I was feverish, a little bit, low fever, really, really achy and a sore throat. So,
yeah.
you know, and tired, just really tired. So we'll just wait and see, but I'm not planning anything for that day. I'm just hoping that, you know, and if I can get stuff done, I'll get stuff done. But if I need to just take a day off, I'll take a day off.
Cool.
So,
So yeah, I mean, if that sounds good to everybody, then we'll have a couple weeks to think about the work plan. And then we'll finalize everything at our next meeting, vote on it at the next meeting, and then have an updated working plan for, again, about the next 3 years. And if you do have any, you know, if something brilliant pops into your mind, and you know, send emails, and then we can get that on the agenda too, and discuss it with us. But anything else with the kind of working plan right now, or questions then before we move on, and I'll wrap up the agenda.
Just
Catherine.
quickly, I just want to confirm that it is possible to co-lead these committees.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
absolutely.
I had seen that, but I just wanted to make sure as I think about this over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, for certain. For
Yep.
certain.
Great.
Yep.
Especially if it's one of the like a million things that Regina is on, I kind of doubt she'll turn down a little help.
Okay, good. Thank
And
you.
we can shuffle around, and it's absolutely fine to have co-chairs and co-leads.
Mhm.
Okay.
I like that. I really like it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of collaboration.
Thanks.
Anything else?
I just wanted to remind everybody that I will be preparing packets for our meeting on the 10th, next Wednesday. So anything that you have, I would like to have to add to the packet. I would like to have it by 9 o'clock on Wednesday.
Were you able to get the 2020 Preservation Month nominations? Did you find them in your office?
Yes, I did. And there was one
Okay.
more for Hotel Ritz.
Okay, cool.
Hotel Holt.
Yeah.
So I think I've got a total of 3, and I'm going to my office. I'm going to spend at least part of the day there Monday.
Okay.
So I'm going to double check and dig around and see if I find anything more.
I know we talked about putting those in the March. So
Yes. Oh, thank you for reminding me.
my March edition is technically work for you, and I apologize.
Well, and that
That's
was going to be one of my comments as well. Sharon sent out the email to everybody, be thinking about preservation awards and nominations, because the call is out there and that deadline is coming up. So
Yep. I would like to well, I had a call today from an architectural firm that wants to nominate something. I had a wonderful email from Kurt, who as usual came up with a list of like 8. And I said, whichever ones you want to work on, I'd be really happy to see. I plan on nominating the Gate Cottage just because that was my baby. So, yeah. So anybody that has any ideas inside or outside the district, absolutely.
Yep. So be sure to get those in. Okay. Citizen comments on non-agenda items. Are there any citizen comments?
There are no citizen comments at this time.
Okay. Pam, do you have anything? All right. Commissioner comments. I already said my reminder, so no commissioner comments. Okay. I would also like to thank you all for doing kind of double duty this month. Thanks for being willing to sit through and help us out with the planning meeting. If there's nothing else, no other commissioner comments, I'm going to ask for somebody move to adjourn this thing.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Awesome. Meeting adjourned. Cool.
Hey, Sharon?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have David Brose's contact information?
Sure, I can send it to you.
Sure. Okay, that'd be great.
The grant committee, I'll see you all next Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Otherwise, I will see the rest of you on the 10th. 10th? Yeah.
Congrats, Josh, on getting at least part of the History Day stuff done.
Is stuff not all the way done yet?
No, I mean,
been in
like,
meetings
it's not
all-
completely, not all the reviews are back to you, but you
Yeah,
got
no,
all the
no.
stuff out.
Yeah, we're in phase one. I've been in meetings all afternoon, so I don't know if there's like Bill sent an email with a hang up or anything either. So hopefully not, but
I haven't seen anything. No.
okay. We're getting there. We're getting there. So anyway, y'all be well, and I'll talk to you soon.
You guys too.
Bye.
Okay. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you.